Pre-council meeting for July 1st, 2013. Chaired by the Honorable Mayor Thomas Durrani.
I don't think
Krista,
the
could you-
microphones are on, right?
They're not working?
I think we're on now.
Out here.
All right. Okay, this is the pre-council meeting for July 1st, 2013, chaired by the Honorable Mayor Thomas Durrani. Krista, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Durrani?
Here?
Councilwoman Barber? Here. Councilman Girl? Absent. Councilman Hug?
Here.
Councilman McFarland?
Here.
Councilman Morris?
Here.
Councilman Odekirk?
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman? Here. Councilman Turk?
Here.
Before we get into the agenda, I had planned on making my nominations to the Economic Development Committee and the Joliet Housing Authority Liaison Committee. There used to be a portion on the calendar that every meeting had mayoral appointments. Well, somewhere along the line, that got eliminated, and when I submitted those nominations on Friday, being as the deadline was over and that was no longer on the agenda, I couldn't put them on the agenda. So I will do that in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today, which would be the 15th of July. Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we've had several items requested to be moved up. The first item is Council Memo 296-13, 296-13, which is the issuance of a Class C-D liquor license at 410 Walnut Street. Mr. Murphy will handle the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. A public hearing was held on June 18th, 2013 for the issuance of a Class CD liquor license at 410 Walnut Street, doing business as Supermercado La Loma. Class CD allows for the sale of beer and wine on the premises only. No one appeared in opposition. The applicant is Francisco Sanchez, who resides at 500 Abe Street in Joliet. There are no outstanding monies owed to the city. The Liquor Commission is recommending approval of the license, as are the building, fire, and police departments.
C and D is packaged liquor, beer and wine only.
Correct.
Yes.
So move.
Second.
Questions? Krista?
It's been motioned and seconded that Supermercado La Loma, Inc. be issued a Class CD liquor license at 410 Walnut Street. Councilwoman Barber? Aye. Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman McFarland?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Odekirk?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman? Aye. Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Mayor Durrani?
Good luck, aye.
Motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the next item is Council Memo number 278-13, 278-13. This is a special use permit to allow a temporary staffing and recruitment office at 301 East Cass Street. The applicant is Elite Staffing with the home headquarters in Chicago. The site is owned by Peter and Faye Ferraduras, and the request is for a special use permit to allow the temporary staffing office in a building that was actually built in 1890. So it's a building that's over 120 years old. There are 2 commercial storefronts at the property. The property is already zoned B3. The plan for Elite is to completely remodel the corner tenant space, and they've secured a 3-year lease to do that. It's before you with a recommendation from the Zoning Board of Appeals from its June 20th meeting for full approval. No one appeared in opposition. Staff is recommending approval, subject to the conditions that are on page 2 of the council memo that were recommended by the ZBA, and a representative of Elite Staffing is present to answer any questions you may have. Sir, if you could identify yourself, please.
My name is Howard Topol, Vice President of Operations for Elite Staffing.
Do we have any questions?
Mayor,
Yeah,
I had a question for Tom.
yes.
You know, I'll be educated on this. Why do we need a special permit? Is that part of the ordinance for this particular type of business?
It is, yes. It was something that was added several years ago, and these come before you for a special use permit.
One of the ones. Thank you, Tom.
There was no objection at the hearing. If
We can
We could
move
do
on
this.
this today, since Mr. Topol is present, and we will not be required to come back if the council votes in favor of it today.
it's your pleasure.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded that ordinance be adopted. Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman McFarland?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Odekirk?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman? Aye. Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber? Aye. Mayor Durrani?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item, Council Memo number 275-13, 275-13 is a preliminary plat and a recording plat for the Centerpoint Business Center I-80 This is Phase 2 of the subdivision. This is an industrially zoned property that used to house part of the Caterpillar operation. CenterPoint bought it several years ago, demolished all the structures, and is now working for the redevelopment of that entire site. It's a large tract of land off of Route 6, west of Larkin Avenue, on the south side of 6. The proposal is to approve a subdivision. It's consistent with the annexation agreement that the City Council approved earlier this year. CenterPoint is working with the developer of a truck terminal that would go on Lot 1. The proposed subdivision went before the Plan Commission on, I believe it was last month, June 20th of 2013. The Plan Commission is recommending the approval of the subdivision. Mike Hanson, attorney for CenterPoint, is present to answer any questions you may have. Staff is recommending its approval.
I have one, Mike. Without divulging a name, if there is one, do they have somebody interested at this time?
Yes, they do.
They do? Okay. Anybody else? Questions? No.
Mr. Mayor, if the council's prepared to vote on this today, I'd recommend voting on it. And
So moved.
Second.
Krista?
It's been motioned and seconded that ordinance be adopted. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman McFarland.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Otterkirk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Mayor Durrani.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And if I could have Mr. Hanson stay at the podium. You have one more client with the matter before the council. The next item on the agenda, 276-13, 276-13. This is a follow-up to something the mayor and city council approved at a council meeting about 2 months ago. This is for the Route 66 Food and Fuel Travel Center at Laraway and Route 53. This is a cleanup of a public utility and drainage easement that was approved with the original plat. It's been determined that the utility easement is not needed. This went before the Plan Commission on June 20th. No opposition. Plan Commission's recommending vacating the, releasing the utility and drainage easement. Staff is doing the same. This is, I think it was put in originally in anticipation of a different type of development going there. With the proposal that's before the council that was approved, the utility easement will not be needed. So what we're doing is releasing it from the plat, recommending its approval.
Mayor,
Yes.
just to be clear, Tom, this is just housekeeping to formalize what we've already done and nothing has changed.
That is correct. Everything that you approved previously remains the same. If you look at the, towards the end of the agenda item, there was a utility easement between Lot 14 and 15. Because we have two parcels that are owned by one owner, we will have construction going on top of that easement, so that easement is no longer needed. It would not serve any useful function, so our recommendation is to vacate it.
Thank you, Tom.
Mike, anything
That
else
is
to add?
exactly correct, Tom.
Okay. We can do this evening also,
So moved.
Second.
as Mike is here. Krista?
It's been motioned and seconded that ordinance be adopted. Councilman McFarland.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Otterkirk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Mayor Durrani.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Next two items that I'm asking to move up, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, 273-13 and 274-13. Both are preliminary and recording plats for the Rock Run Business Park. The first one is Unit 2A, re-subdivision number 1, and the second one is the IDI re-subdivision of number 1. Present on this today is Bill Bone with the engineering firm of Jacob and Hefner. The proposed subdivision is designed to accommodate the hotel conference center that the city council saw a presentation on about a month ago. What you may recall, there's a large tract of land on which the hotel conference center will be constructed. That is being subdivided into 3 lots, I believe it is. One is a drainage or stormwater detention facility, and then 2 lots where the hotel conference center will be built on one. The second lot will be reserved for future development. There's another subdivision that IDI has requested, and that is just south of this site to create another stormwater facility and also another developable lot. I know that IDI is working with Jim Haller on the development of that other industrial parcel, and we're hoping we can bring something to you on that in the near future. But this is basically allowing the Hotel Conference Center to proceed. I know there's been an issue raised with the sales tax and hotel tax rebate issue. That is not before you today. That'll come before you most likely at the next meeting with a formal agreement outlining all of the details of the sales tax and hotel tax rebate. And what we'd like to do is get that in the hands of the council in advance, also make it available on the website and to the public in advance, so you'll have an opportunity to hear from all quarters when it comes to the proposed sales tax incentive. I did have a conversation with the lead developer today, informing him of the reason for the delay in the sales tax rebate agreement, and we're hopeful we can have that before you in 2 weeks at your meeting on the 15th and 16th. But today's action is solely for the purpose of subdividing the land. It has nothing to do with the hotel or sales tax rebate. I know Bill Bone from Jacob and Hefner is present. If you have any questions on the subdivision or the IDI portion that's being retained by IDI, and I know the Sanjeev Marota and his partners are present also, if you have any questions of them. My recommendation is on the sales tax rebate and the hotel tax rebate agreement. My recommendation is hold off until we have the agreement in your hands so you can see the actual terms and conditions. It'll be consistent with the presentation we made 4 weeks ago. And at that point, we can certainly have a conversation about whether that moves forward.
Tom, I know real estate abatement is not included in that, but in 2 weeks, could you also have what kind of taxes we are getting from this piece of property now, and what kind of taxes are anticipated once this development is done?
We do have the numbers on what the property is generating right now, and it's a very low amount. Doing some quick math, it's probably, for the city of Joliet, it's probably generating about $3,000 to $4,000 a year. So it's not too much off of the real estate tax right now.
Maybe once it's complete,
developed,
I'd like to know what the
The
taxes
staff is
are.
working on that number so we can give you a projected value of the real estate taxes and the portion that would go to the city of Joliet and the portion that would go to Joliet Township High School and Troy 30C School District.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions?
Mayor?
Yes.
Well, I certainly want to see this project move forward because of the jobs and economic development. The question really came down to its impact on existing local business. And actually, Tom, I hadn't had a chance to call you, and I had forgotten that Jeff is on, out of town on vacation, but I did submit a proposed, what I think might be something that will actually address the two issues while, keeping the better of both worlds. But I'm waiting for a legal opinion from him if it's even worth bringing to the council.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay.
Mayor, I do have a question.
Sure.
Tom, help me here, okay? I thought we were ready to move forward and vote on this. So what happened in the 2 weeks since we last met?
There's been vocal opposition to the sales tax and hotel tax rebate agreement. And based on that, it's generated a lot of conversation between the person who's opposing it and myself. And there have been some other people, some other businesses, actually one other business person who's in the hotel business who contacted me not to oppose it, but just to express concern and wanting to see the final draft. The final draft of the agreement is not completed, and rather than providing that to members of the public first and then the council after that, I wanted to get it in your hands first, so you have it, so when you're asked questions about it, you have it along with a summary of it. And then what we would do is, in 2 weeks, have a formal vote on that agreement.
Okay, having said all that, how come we didn't have that information before?
It's actually, you've got the information, all of the details of the sales tax and hotel tax rebate we went over about a month ago at a pre-council meeting when we had the PowerPoint presentation from the hotel developer, but we do not have it committed to a formal document. The document is lengthy. It's not completed yet. We will have it completed probably this week, get it in your hands so you can review it and then make it available to people who've expressed interest and put it on the website in advance so people can look at it.
Okay, so I guess what I want to say is, without delaying this project, I wanted to move the project forward, but yet we could still work on the issue with the tax abatement for the private business owner that's filing the complaint. I thought we could make it a win-win situation.
Yeah, I think there's a proposal as to whether his business would be eligible for a similar rebate, either of the food and beverage tax or the sales tax. And I haven't heard that request from him, nor do I know the scope of what he is looking for. I'm hearing that through third parties, actually I heard it for the first time today. So if that's the case, I'm not sure if that's something I would recommend or not. I just don't know the scope of it, and I'd like to see what he has in mind. But I think that is something that is separate from the hotel tax issue. The hotel tax is not something that competes with his business. The hotel doesn't compete with his business. It's the restaurant inside the hotel conference center that he has expressed concern about. And I've had a face-to-face meeting with Joe to give him my opinion on it, but it's my opinion. I don't have a study backing it up. I can tell you that we do have a study from January of 2000 that was done for a proposed hotel conference center, and this is something the city of Joliet has been pursuing for, well, that was January 2000. So, the inquiry into a hotel conference center started in the 1990s, the late 90s, and now here we are about 15 years later, and we're very close to getting it done. We'd like to be able to move forward on this at the the July 15th meeting, and get it finally approved. And if there's another issue that needs to be addressed with another business owner, we can certainly do that.
So this will delay the project by 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
If it goes?
Well, the closing wasn't scheduled to happen until later in July, so I don't think this will set back the closing unless the city doesn't take action on the agreement at the July 15th meeting.
Okay, but you can assure us this isn't going to hurt the deal, because I've heard a lot of things out there over the last couple of weeks that, even if we were to look at something else, it might hurt the deal. And we need the jobs, and I think we can make it a win-win for both parties. Yeah, the hotel developer has invested a lot of time and money in this project, and Mr. Marotta is present today to confirm it, and that he's still firmly committed to this site, to Joliet. He has confidence in the mayor and city council creating a business-friendly atmosphere in Joliet. And while this incentive appears to be very large, I can tell you that in my research on what communities like Joliet do in this arena, we're right along where everybody else is. Naperville right now, the city council in Naperville is on the same path we are. They have a $60 million hotel conference center project they're looking at along Deal Road on the I-88 corridor, and they are looking at a $7.5 million incentive. I've got the proposed agreement. It's not available for public dissemination yet, but I'm looking at that, comparing it with ours. I talked to the city manager of the town of Normal, where a Marriott Hotel Conference Center was built in downtown Normal, which is now called Uptown Normal, and it's very close to the Illinois State University campus. In that particular case, the town of Normal invested $25 million into the $70 million project. That was actual money invested by the community, by the city, or the town of Normal. In our case, I have tried to structure this so there's no city money at risk. The only money that would be invested by the city is money coming from a successful venture, unlike some of the other communities. Lombard and Schaumburg have actually financed and constructed their own hotels, beautiful hotels, high-end, the Westin and Lombard and the Renaissance in Schaumburg, but they have bonds that there's some exposure to the community on those. And while they got wonderful products out of it, I didn't think we were in a position for us to start financing hotel projects. So what we did is we went to a backup plan where it would be the city sharing revenue that's generated from the project back with the developer to help incentivize the project. I know the question is, where does the money get, this quote-unquote the savings go? And in discussing this with the hotel developer, the money needs to be invested in taking business away from other communities, because there's a finite amount of associations that have annual conferences, and I think a lot of us belong to various associations that have conferences where 200, 300, 400 people attend, and our goal is to get a lot of that business coming to Joliet. But when you look at those when you look at those organizations, they've booked for the next 2 years already. So we're helping them get through these first couple of years while they're out
marketing Joliet. And what's really nice is when you get the larger conferences coming where their 200 rooms get filled up and they need another 100 rooms. And we all know there's 4 or 5 other quality hotels within 4 or 5 minutes of their site that will fill up also on these Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday type conferences. So that's what it takes. It takes time to build up the business, and that's why we're helping with some of that risk. Not that we're exposing any city assets, it's only the money we would receive if the project is successful.
Okay, thank you.
You know, Tom, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I can remember the city hired a consultant to see about putting a hotel convention center in downtown Joliet, and they interviewed all the council people, and the feeling was that because of the traffic and so forth, that it wouldn't go downtown Joliet. And I think everybody here understands that in order, if you're going to do economic development, you're going to have to give incentives. It's very competitive out there, and this incentive, I think, is in line. And I would just tread lightly when we talk to these developers that we don't lose this, that we don't lose it. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, Mayor, that was my concern. That's why I wanted to ask the questions today, because
Okay. Sure.
I think it was put well. You know,
Okay.
we do want this, and in this climate, we're giving away, we're going to be called upon to give away what some people might describe as hefty incentives by normal standards, but this isn't normal times. So I think the focus for myself, and I can't speak for the whole council, is we need to give these incentives to these folks that bring in new business, but you know what? Let's get ahead of the curve with one business that may be affected adversely, that we put together a policy that mitigates damage on head-to-head competition of existing businesses. And that's why, Tom, I think this might be the proper way to do it, is maybe I'll send it to you since Jeff's out of town, and then you can send it on to the rest of the council members so they have that, because that probably would tie in nicely to what we're discussing, the particular possible ordinance that I was considering to bring forward. Does that make sense to you?
That's fine. Send it to me, and then I can share it with the rest of the council members, and then get back to you on a recommendation.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
I just want to,
No. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify, the debate on this project's what the restaurant's potential is going to be inside the complex. Am I correct from what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Not the 2.4 million tax, but I think we agreed as a council to bring that forth when you presented a month ago. I think the issue at hand, which we're kind of jumping around, is whether this development is going to have a sports bar that's going to compete head-to-head with an existing sports bar 300 feet away. So I want to make sure we're clear that that's the issue that needs to be addressed, not whether or not we're going to come forth with a $2.4 million incentive to make sure this project goes.
Just to respond to that, Jim, that is the issue. But like I said, if that is an issue by not allowing them to do a sports bar that they're going to leave, then so be it. I just don't want to lose it. John?
I kind of had similar, comments. I had received the email from Joe, and I had spoke to him just briefly, with respect to it. I personally, I'm not going to speak for the entire council. Tom, I agree with you 100%. I mean, we have to be competitive as it relates to these types of projects. And I think the concept of, bringing the hotel along with the convention center, I fully support. I also fully support the tax abatement, the $2.4 million. But I do have a concern on how it's going to affect an existing business. I know there's a lot of discussion as far as how it's going to affect, Joe's existing business, him being so close. I guess that's up for debate. But in his mind, he feels that he's going to be at a real economic disadvantage. And we certainly don't want to do that. Is there any, I don't know, maybe it's a question for the mayor, is there any, attempt or any discussion about possibly bringing the parties together? Because I guess I want to say I want our cake and eat it too. Possibly there has to be some middle ground here. There's always more than one way to skin this cat. And I'm hoping that the city manager and possibly the mayor, would kind of bring the parties together, see if we can't find some middle ground, and there's got to be a deal to be made to bring this needed development to our city, but also make sure that we don't adversely affect, one of our local businesses.
I think there's a way of having that conversation, and that's why we really weren't ready to move forward today, because I didn't want to put you in a position of voting on an agreement where there were still unanswered questions about the effect on competition. I think give us 2 weeks, we'll come back with a recommendation and the formal agreement, and then I think at that point, we'll be able to move forward, give the green light to the developers so they can get busy and get a quality hotel conference center built in Joliet.
I'd be willing to sit down, absolutely.
Mayor, so
Yes.
just to clarify then, you are going to bring the two parties together and sit down and come to some kind of agreement?
There will be discussions. I'm not sure what form that'll take. I'm going to do my best to try to get this resolved by July 15th.
I think a compromise would be in order. That's my opinion.
Okay.
The only items before you are the moving lines on a plat, and I think that's Bill's specialty and not incentive agreements, correct, Bill?
That is correct.
Okay, and I think he's requesting that we take action on the plat approvals today if you're comfortable moving forward, knowing this has no impact on the sales tax
One
issue.
way or the other.
So moved.
Second.
Krista?
It's been motioned and seconded, said ordinances be adopted. Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Otterkirk?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilwoman Barber? Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman McFarland?
Aye.
Mayor Durrani?
Aye,
Motion carried.
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I believe that concludes the items being moved up. I don't think we have anybody else who's asked for anything to be moved up. We have citizens to be heard. Ms. Calderon called the clerk's office earlier today and indicated she's unable to attend. Second person who signed up to speak is Alicia Morales regarding Focus Forward.
Thank you. I have a small request of the mayor. I understand I get a short period of time, and in light of Ms. Calderon not being able to be here, could I have an extra minute of her time?
See what you can do.
Okay.
Problem I have, Alicia, problem I have, if I do it for you, then the next person comes there. You understand? I'd love to do it, but just kind of keep it close.
Okay, I will definitely. I don't want to talk too fast and try and squeeze everything in 3 minutes and then miss my point. My name is Alicia Morales. I reside at 311 South Hunter, and I felt it necessary to share my thoughts after I heard the business community leaders speak a couple of weeks ago. While these individuals touched on many important topics, there was one that was never brought up, and that is the issue of inclusion within our Joliet community. While Mr. Slinkard did mention, and quote, he did say, quote, for the sake of the city, we must all put the future of our community ahead of our personal agendas to keep moving forward towards our new future. The businesses are concerned about the perception that is being created by our council, end of quote. Well, at one point, after many residents spoke against the CCA, Mr. Thanis mentioned that Joliet was used to controversial issues. Therefore, I don't understand what is the problem now. We have a handful of council members that actually they think on their own and actually work on behalf of the people. So now the perception is a concern. Mr. Rolfe says that there's a business advisory group put together by the mayor to hear opinions and perspectives on some issues, and the committee's goal is simply, quote, to build a business climate that fosters economic development that positively impacts our community. We need to think of 2025 today, end of quote. I hope that my community is a part of this goal also. However, I am concerned that it may not be, because the CCA was not going to build a climate that fostered economic development, nor was it going to impact our community in a positive way. The business leaders are stepping up now, and this is all well-intentioned rhetoric, but I ask, why now? When we, the people, we needed the business community support last November, when we too spoke loudly against the CCA, a for-profit prison, which would tear into the fabric of our community, and not one single member of the mayor's cherry-picked business advisory committee supported us. We, the people, have also been thinking of 2025 for over 40 years, and we are not going to stop now. Both business leaders touched on various projects that are great. They're coming to Joliet, for example, like the JJC City Center expansion. JJC's Office of Institutional Research has done extensive work and research to implement their new master plan. And as a result of that work, much of which was driven by the minority community's growth, particularly the Latino growth, we would like to see that the new city manager may want to connect with JJC to review their research and grow the city in a holistic and inclusive manner, similar to what JJC is doing. They're doing really great work out there. And Mr. Rolfe alluded to the possibility of having an economic development office as an investment to the city to work on quality of life issues and creating the need to attract new businesses. In theory, this sounds like a great idea. However, you've already invested the money. And this plan, it was done about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and it's your quality of life plan for districts 4 and 5, which also includes growing the downtown area. The office that I think we desperately need to formally invest some resources in is a formal diversity office that would report directly to the mayor and city council. This would be completely separate from anything that Mr. Kendall Jackson or Mr. Alfredo Malesio are currently doing with the city. If we are going to really thrive as a city of champions someday, we must get past these growing pains and achieve good government and have a fair and just democracy. We need to incorporate integrity, transparency, and reestablish trust. In addition to our legal compliance, we also have to be ethically compliant.
Alicia, you're at 4 right now.
Okay, I'm done. Give me 2 seconds. And diversity and inclusion needs to be realized through all departments and at all employment levels, including appointed positions. Supporting diversity and inclusion is American. It is a civic and moral responsibility. It is not a favor. It is simply the right thing to do, and you guys are not alone. We want to work with you. We are ready, willing, and able to work with the city, whether it's in focus groups or conducting a DACM study, to build a strategy that includes the people's needs and our vision also. Today is a new day in Joliet. Change is positive. We wish Mr. Thanos the best, and we look forward to a new city manager with a different perspective on diversity and inclusion, one with a business background and stronger interpersonal skills. And I am hopeful that we will heal from this
Alicia,
awful
come
experience.
on, wrap it up.
I am hopeful we will heal from this awful experience as long as we remain respectful to one another and stay in God's moral course. Thank you very much. I wanted to do a presentation like Mr. Slinkard was, but I don't know the process in doing a presentation and taking maybe 10 minutes as opposed to 4. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, next speaker who signed up is Robert Hernandez regarding Economic Development Committee and Mayor's Business Committee.
I just want to say that that was a great presentation by Alicia. I hope you take that into consideration, and I have no further comment. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we can go to the top of the agenda.
Mayor.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
I'd like to speak if I can and get an opportunity to sign up.
A name, step forward.
John Sheridan, 1122 North Center Street.
Is there a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, John.
Thank you. First, I'd like to speak as a parent of a child with disability and a board member of Cornerstone Services. I'd like to thank the Police Department and Will County Sheriff's Department for searching for Michael Anderson, missing client from Easter Seals that was in a day program at Cornerstone almost 2 weeks ago, including the search party on the 23rd of June. It was because of the city's efforts that we had a happy ending. And I'd first like to thank the Police Department and the Men in Blue for doing that. Now I want to change hats and talk to you as a member of the Cunningham Neighborhood Council. I sent an email back on June 10th to you, Mr. Mayor, and the City Council on 2 issues, crime report system and a revision of the city ordinance. I would like to thank the 3 council members at large, Jim McFarland, Jan, and Mike, for getting back to me on my email. I received a satisfactory answer on the crime report system from Chief Trafton. It's all about being short-staffed and work prioritization. Don't necessarily like the answer, but I accept it. It's due to a workload prioritization. He has to make those decisions. I still need a guesstimate for completion date on the revisions of the city noise ordinance. It was started back in March with Councilman Fisher, myself, and the chief, and one of his commanders. If corporate council could get back to me with a guesstimate date on that noise ordinance, I'd appreciate it. We're in full swing, parties, summer, so on and so forth. It'll make everybody's job a lot easier. Reporting a complaint, in addition to the police officers coming out and resolving the complaints. Last, NOPT. As you're all aware, we met back in October 2012 and the program was dissolved because of budget cuts. You said it was going to be put back in 2013. Here we are, 6 months later. We were supposed to be putting 13 officers back on the street. Should have never have been taken out in the first place. It's going rather slow. I think it's time the City Council examine the police budget and see if you can provide the police chief with more officers. When I say examine the budget, I say you really need to do is examine the overtime the city is paying for each month and see if it's more feasible to hire more police officers than to pay the overtime. you may find it be more cost-effective if you hire the officers. When you do the analysis, include the white shirts over time. No disrespect, but the supervisors wear the white shirts, and I know they're putting in a lot of hours, and they're probably filling in a lot of the officers' duties to pick up the short time. And in management positions in corporate America, they always expect you to do more back when the cuts are there, but there's always a reasonable amount of time you put in to balance family life and work life, and I think you really need to examine that. And I would like for you to report those findings back to the residents of Joliet in another pre-council meeting, or maybe a full council meeting, your choice. But what I'm looking for is the basis of your analysis as to why you think we should hire or will not hire more police officers, you know, kind of from what you looked at, give me your decision. If this is a problem, let me know. I'll approach that from a different avenue. But again, I'd like to thank you, all your support, and the continued support for our neighborhood association, CNC. Thank you.
John, as regards to your email, I did forward that to Chief Trafton, since both of them concerned him, and asked him to contact you.
Thank you. They did. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
sure.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the June 17th special meeting, June 17th pre-council, and the June 18th regular meeting. We'll have committee reports tomorrow evening. Agenda items, council memo number 267-13. That is a request for Medicare reimbursement contractual services. Starting in 2010, the city engaged a company called Part D Advisors, Inc. to assist us in recouping revenue from the federal government for a retiree drug subsidy, RDS, and an early retiree reinsurance program. The federal government, as part of the Affordable Care Act, decided to incentivize agencies like Joliet that provide coverage for health care coverage for retirees, and allows us to recoup some of those dollars. Since we engaged Part D Advisors back in 2010, we've been able to recover in excess of $814,000 for RDS and $715,000 for the ERRP, the Early Retiree Reinsurance Program. The proposal before you is asking us to extend the Part D Advisors contract from October of 2013 until September of 2015. The contract was reviewed by the Finance Committee at its June 18th meeting. Staff is recommending its approval. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on it.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Tom, I just wanted to clarify one thing that I think is good news, too. Payment of this outside consultant is a 30% commission of new monies found, and we all know with the bureaucracies, the way they grow, that we cannot, as a council or a staff, find all these hidden monies. So they only get paid for what they find above and beyond what we already have.
That is correct. It's based, there is no fee-based commission, fee-based compensation. It's strictly a contingency based on success of recovering dollars from the federal government on our behalf. And there is a finite pool of money, so it's first come, first serve on a lot of these. Having a company like Part D gives us the advantage of getting in early and trying to secure the best deal we can.
And we'd essentially have to put together a whole department to try to do that, which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars in salaries and benefits.
It is complicated, and it's something that I don't think we have the expertise on staff to handle it. I recommend Part D Advisors be engaged.
Thanks, Tom.
This is the one that was discussed at the Finance Committee, Mike, and we're looking at recouping almost $1 million. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Next item, 268-13, is another item that the Finance Committee reviewed at its June 18th meeting. This is a requirement for deferred compensation plans. This, again, is another no-cost item to the city of Joliet. The city makes a deferred compensation plan available to all city employees. City employees have the option of taking some of their income up to a certain amount set by the federal government and setting aside in a deferred compensation account for retirement. There is no match by the city. This is strictly employee dollars based on money that's been earned by the employees. And we have 3 companies that provide services to employees. Each employee can choose which of the 3 companies he or she wants to invest its money with. The proposal before you is an update based on federal regulations having changed recently. The federal government is asking us to renew all 3 agreements with the new requirements. You have attached the federal regulations that have been revised. Fairly detailed. If you have any questions, we'll certainly try to answer them. But again, this is another item we're recommending approval. Finance Committee also recommended approval of it. 269-13, position vacancies. We have 2 vacancies in our Neighborhood Services Division, both through retirements. We're asking for authorization to move forward with filling both positions. These positions are important for the rental inspection program, and we would try to fill them internally. If there are no internal applicants that meet the requirements, then we would seek applications from outside of the current city employee complement. Also recommended is a water plant operator position. Again, we would seek to fill internally. If there are no internal applicants who are qualified, only then we would pursue applicants from outside. And then we have a general maintenance worker who is an hourly employee assigned to Union Station to maintain the cleanliness of Union Station. That position's been vacated recently. We'd like to get that filled as soon as possible. I know some of you have received emails. We were doing pretty good for a while, and unfortunately we had a setback, and we have to go in a little different direction with staffing that position, and I'd like to fill the position as quickly as possible. Maintaining the cleanliness of Union Station is critically important. It really does speak volumes as to our ability to improve downtown Joliet, and we need to have the right person there. So I'm asking authorization to fill those 4 positions in Council Memo 269-13. Next item, 271-13, is the annexation of 413 Scribner. This is a single-family home. The owner is Angelica Valencia. The request is to connect to city water and sewer. That's readily available in Scribner. The Plan Commission reviewed this on May 17th. No one spoke in opposition. Staff is recommending its approval. There will be a public hearing on this tomorrow night.
Mayor?
Yes.
Tom, will there be any cost to the city on that annexation?
No, I don't believe there is. The owner will pay the tap-on fee, the detachment fee to the East Joliet Fire Protection District, and the connection fees to be paid by the owner. There's no out-of-pocket expense for the city. We'll be adding a customer to our water and sewer fund.
Thank you.
Next item, 273, and the item after that, 274. And Krista, help me, we voted on both of those, correct?
Correct.
The one motion approving both items?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. 275 is the Center Point Business Center on Route 6. That's been approved, as well as 276-13, which is the Route 66 Food and Fuel Travel Center. Next item, 277-13, is a ZBA petition for a special use permit to approve an Avis budget car rental facility at the Sears store, the Sears Auto Center at the Lewis Joliet Mall. It would have a small office, but I think it's a good sign when the demand is starting to grow for this type of agency, especially with a national brand like Avis. This went before the ZBA on June 20th. ZBA recommended its approval unanimously. Staff is doing the same. 278-13 is the temporary staffing office, which you've already taken action on. 280-13 is a resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds, MFT funds, for the 2013 pavement marking program. This is the item that we've tabled a couple of times. The corresponding contract is at Council Memo 288-13, and I believe the Public Service Committee discussed this item at its meeting this evening at 5 p.m. I'm not sure if there was a recommendation to proceed.
We did.
There, okay, so that's before you. This is appropriating $163,807 of motor fuel tax funds, which comes from the state of Illinois for road projects. Next item is a Council Memo 281-13, and that's a resolution accepting the award of a $12,000 grant for trees that we would be able to purchase to replace the trees that have been destroyed through the emerald ash borer infestation that we've seen. I know there was a discussion, Councilman Odekirk raised it a few months ago. We told you we'd go out and try to find grant money. I sit on a environmental committee for the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, and they did have some funding for tree replacement program through the Morton Arboretum. We got in line. Jim Tiber, our arborist, was able to make a case for it, and I know it's not much, but it's still $12,000 that will help us purchase 50 to 90 trees. What we're asking, though, is to proceed with the 50/50 program, work with the homeowners associations and neighborhood associations that have approached us already, looking for some help, like Glenwood Manor, trying to get as many trees through the 50/50 match and at least double the number of trees that we would be able to replace. These are trees that have already been cut down. They were infested and they were diseased, so now we're coming back with trees that Jim Tiber would select and work with the neighborhood groups to get them planted.
Tom, do we have any idea what the citizens' half would be?
Whatever half of the tree is, and I don't know.
Mayor,
that's not my
at the meeting,
question.
Jim Tabor mentioned probably around $60 to $70 he was thinking.
Okay, very good.
Mayor?
Yes.
Tom, something that we might look at, which is related to this, if I understand correctly, and we can ask Jim Tiber, starting next year, we're going to be looking at thousands of ash trees coming down because they're dead and they're going to start rotting. The cost per inch on diameter is going to most likely go up. In fact, we have one of the lowest, our contracts right now are one of the lowest of a lot of the municipalities that are paying 3 and 4 times as much. I'd like to see, let's get ahead of the curve, if we can start investigating to find the funds for 2 things possibly. A couple pieces of equipment, a stump grinder, and an additional large diameter chipper so that we can do more in-house and use that savings to pay for trees, and the possibility of introducing a summer program to take down the trees over the next, not this summer, it's too late, over the next several summers, and see if we can save some money on that regard, as well as put some of the college kids or high school kids to work, making a few dollars. If we can look into that, I'd appreciate it.
I'll have Jim look into it. I believe you may see a proposal for another chipper. We purchased our own chipper about 2 or 3 years ago. And as far as the stump grinder, I'm not sure where we are with that, but we'll give you a full recommendation. And I'm not sure if anybody's followed up on that. We'll find out and get probably a report to the next Public Service Committee meeting on that.
Tom, thank you. I only bring it up because if we can actually save some dollars, then that's more we can put towards the trees.
Yeah, the emerald ash borer has created a liability of millions of dollars for Illinois municipalities. Some have gone a little different direction as far as doing a tree injection program that tries to prolong the life. And what it does is it takes a tree that would ordinarily die in a year or 2 or 3 and give it another 5 or 6. It's kind of a life support system, which allows that community to spread out the removal program over that period, but there's still a substantial cost to the injection program. We've taken a little different approach, saying let's get them down, work on a tree replacement program, get the replacement trees growing, rather than trying to prolong the life of trees that will die eventually anyway.
And if we haven't, maybe we can. If we put out started to put out some notice, because I don't think I want the general public that maybe doesn't even watch, these council meetings. From what I understand, over the next couple of years, there's going to be some subdivisions with the ash concentration, where people are going to wake up at the end of some summer and say, half our trees are gone, a third of our trees. We need to kind of warn them that it's what's going on.
Yeah,
maybe we can have some kind of
it's noticeable now. I believe there was a emerald ash borer plan that was submitted to the Land Use Committee about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. We'll get that, and then we'll do a little bit of a media campaign with that.
Thank you, Tom.
Next item, Council Memo 282-13 is a resolution appropriating funds for the Cottage Place Jasper Street roadway project. Again, this is using state motor fuel tax funds for a $209,000 project. There's a corresponding contract at Council Memo 291-13 on this particular contract, and the low bidder on that project is P.T. Farrow at $209,709. Next item is a resolution declaring certain property as surplus. We have accumulated in our utilities department a lot of fixtures, broken pipes, and fittings that need to be disposed of through a salvage or a scrap vendor. We've taken proposals from 3 local vendors. The best proposal at $300 per gross ton is from Ace Iron and Metal here in downtown Joliet, and we're recommending having the salvaged metals taken to Ace Metal for the $300 per gross ton fee. We also have some unused desks and chairs that are probably a couple decades old, no longer have usefulness here at the City of Joliet. We've offered them to certain social service agencies. Not too many of them were taken because they are in a little rough shape. We're recommending that we offer them to Habitat for Humanity's Restore facility on South Larkin Avenue and see if Restore can use them and get them back into useful productivity. Next item is a resolution authorizing the sale of property at 1212 Woodland Court. This is through the Neighborhood Stabilization Program that we started about 4 years ago. And I think Alfredo Malesio is going to be giving us an update on all the dollars that have gone through that program over the last 4 years. This is another success story of having a house that was in foreclosure, acquired by the city, rehabilitated. It was marketed. We had, I believe, it says 114 individuals or families that came through for the open houses on April 28th and May 5th. 7 proposals or 7 bids were put into a lottery for the house, and the winner of the lottery was Jamila Snap to purchase the home for $200,000. There'll be a payment assistance or a down payment assistance of $43,000 through the federal program, and the property owner will be responsible for paying off the mortgage, which is going to be coming through Harris Bank. Staff is recommending approval. I would imagine Ms. Snap will be here tomorrow evening to address you. We have the regular payroll for June 21st of 2013. That's Council Memo 286-13. And then the remainder of the items were reviewed by the Public Service Committee at its meeting today at 5 p.m. And I know the committee will be making a report on that at tomorrow's meeting. That concludes. I do have 2 other items that Councilman McFarland asked us to add, and those are updates. First one is on 920 North Broadway in the Broadway Greenway. That is the Rich and Creamy ice cream store. I'm not sure if everyone knew, but the city of Joliet actually acquired the ice cream shop during the Broadway Greenway project. We've had a lease there with the operator since June of 2001. It's a 30-year lease. The rent started out at $1,000 per month. It bumped up to $1,210 per month. The operator of the store fell behind in the rent in 2011. We were able to work with him, get him back on track in 2012, keeping up with the monthly payments, but we still had an arrearage of about $18,000. There was an agreement entered in court on May 20th of 2013 for the operator to make a substantial down payment on the $18,000 arrearage. A $6,000 payment was made by the operator towards the $18,000, and then he's now making double payments towards reducing the debt. So he's already made one double payment in June of this year for $2,420. So it looks like by the end of this year, end of 2013, the operator will be in full compliance with the lease. We did have an option of looking at eviction, but we thought keeping the store in business and not trying to find another operator made more sense. It's a good location. We are concerned about the condition of the building. It's an old building. It needs a new roof. It needs some other improvements that we, the city, would be responsible for. We patched it along the best we can. We'll continue doing that, but we don't think that that site merits a lot of investment of city dollars at this point. One concern I have is the proximity of the store to Broadway, to Route 53. It's very close. Back in the day, it was probably okay, but right now with cars and trucks going through there, there's some concern about the safety of it. So I think at some point in the future, we're going to have to look at a better solution to this. But I think Councilman McFarland was getting some calls on where we stood with the arrearage, and it looks like we're on our way to getting that cleared.
Tom, my wife and I stopped there a couple weeks ago for ice cream. The building is in bad shape.
It needs a lot of attention, and we know that it's as a landlord, we're responsible for the maintenance of the physical plant, or for the building itself. Obviously, the operator has to maintain it and keep it clean. And I know we put some new lights there, got rid of some lights that were in pretty bad shape, but I think going forward, we're going to have to look at what the future holds for this site.
Also, up the street, there's a house on the east side of Broadway Street. The owner stopped by my office and wanted to know if the city was interested. I said, years ago when we were doing that, we had the money, but today, we don't have the money. I think, if my memory serves me correct, I think the city offered him money back then, but he wanted more. So I says, I'll bring it to his attention, but I don't think we're interested right now.
If you could give me the contact information, it's probably worth the conversation, but,
do
you know, that was, and again, this goes back to probably 92, 94-ish, when we, I guess it was before people used the words public-private partnership. Crossfield Chemical Company provided $1 million to the city of Joliet to acquire, I don't know, probably about 30 homes along Broadway that were right up on the right-of-way line, and they needed a lot of attention, and we were able to acquire probably 90% of the homes, and ended up with a beautiful greenway that is now an arboretum, and it really was something that worked out very well for us. I know there were some reluctant property owners, and the council made a decision then not to force them out of their homes, so I'm guessing that somebody now is having second thoughts about that and would like to revisit it.
I'll get
So
that for
we
you.
can talk to them.
Sure.
And if there are no questions on that, I think the second topic that Councilman McFarland asked me to report on is the courthouse project. Mayor Girani and I continue to have meetings with county officials and other interested parties to move a master plan along. The meetings recently have been very productive. It's a very complicated process, a lot of land swaps, and I think we've talked about it. I know the County Capital Improvements Committee met for several hours about a month ago and went through the entire plan dealing with all of the assets that the county owns in downtown Joliet, and you'll see that it is the largest landowner in downtown Joliet, so that's why it's critical for us to maintain a good relationship with the county. The meetings we've had, I think, are moving towards a plan that'll come before you for formal endorsement. It will involve the city positioning itself to have certain properties under the city's control, doing some land swaps with the county. The county has already cooperated with us on the transportation center, where we built the new parking lot on property that was used by the Will County Circuit Clerk's Office and the Will County Sheriff's Office, and we replaced that parking with parking on Ottawa Street at the new lot on the west side of the ADF. So good progress is being made. I think you'll see a full presentation probably in the next 30 days.
Is it safe to say that the courthouse is going to stay in downtown Joliet?
I think it's safe to say that everyone that's part of this process agrees the courthouse belongs in downtown Joliet, but there are a lot of things that have to happen to make that a reality. And I think the biggest challenge will be the funding source for the cost of building a new courthouse. And I think that is the tallest mountain that needs to be climbed, and we are trying to put a plan together that will receive support across the board from business, labor, the city, the county, other jurisdictions that use the courthouse. There are, I think, 26 or 28 municipalities in Will County that use the courthouse facilities, and we need to get broad-based support for that. So, I think we've seen the county commit itself to downtown Joliet, and they understand that a new courthouse on the First Midwest site ties together the three key assets the county already owns: the existing courthouse, the adult detention facility, and what we used to call the EMCO building, the court annex. And it makes sense to be there. To go to another location would be expensive and would involve a lot of operational changes for the sheriff and other departments. But I won't say that that is out of the realm of possibility. That's why we still have to band together as a city and to try to work with the county to make it happen.
Okay.
Just to kind of follow, Tom, is it safe to say you're cautiously optimistic about the courthouse staying in Joliet?
I'm very optimistic. I think I have great faith in the county board and the county executive and all the constitutional officers in the county. I think they understand that we have a plan in place. Everybody's got a special interest in their needs, whether it's parking or operational issues, safety issues, those kind of things, and we need to address a lot of those up front. And I think everyone needs assurances. I know from our perspective, opening up Chicago Street remains the linchpin of this project. The county has indicated its willingness to work with us if everything else goes right. I know the judiciary is interested in working with us, but the judiciary has some control over that, what is now privately owned or county-owned property, which would be Chicago Street, and they need to have some assurances also. And that's why we're working with Chief Judge Shainstead and his staff on trying to come up with a solution that addresses the judiciary's concerns too, because they have a major role in this process.
I mean, you talk about economic development, just to put it into perspective, that could be, what, a $250 million project over
The
there?
county has estimated that its construction projects, a reasonable figure, and this is not constructing opulent palaces, this is constructing very functional facilities, a courthouse, along with other needs, a sheriff's office and a few other buildings that are needed, would be about a $300 million effort. And, you know, we are saying that that is the ultimate local stimulus package for local contractors, local trades, and helping us inject capital into our local economy. Obviously, the missing piece right now is the funding source, and that's where we need to do a lot of heavy lifting on that.
Councilman, it is safe to say that all the players at the table want the courthouse to stay downtown. That's safe to say, sure. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
That was quick.